Hey guys, I just wanted to do my reaction video to one of the last, there may be there may be one or two more after this, to at least like the Arrow, Comic Con trailer, at least one of, hopefully maybe one of the last, um, DC TV trailers I react to from Comic Con, depending on my schedule. Um, so from where we last left off on Arrow, we had like Ricardo Diaz getting pissed off because between Diggle recruiting the Human Target to pose as Tommy Merlin to say that he was the Green Arrow instead of Oliver Queen, and saying, and even with enough prodding from Quentin to Black Siren admitting that, or at least not admitting, but at least convincing her to say that um, Tommy Merlin was the Green Arrow, whether instead of Oliver Queen, led to her getting kidnapped by Ricardo Diaz, and Ricardo Diaz like going on a rampage, even against the Quadrant's behest, and going after Oliver and his family. You know, like wrecking his apartment, destroying both the the bunker underneath his own like campaign office, and the new the B teams in the B team's base, even leading to a standoff in which he shot Quentin, and Black Siren was pissed enough to want to get vengeance, and Dinah being big enough person to, rather than being continue to be consumed by her vengeance against Black Siren, helping her get Quentin to a hospital, while Oliver was like fighting off, and the rest of the team, and with the help of Anatoly, who Oliver was able to appeal to his better nature, and they were able to kind of just reconcile and make him an ally again, because of just how unstable Diaz was. That they led to it led to like a whole face off between the reunited Team Arrow against Diaz, but it was Black Siren who used her sonic scream to knock Ricardo Diaz into body of water, but it was enough that Oliver was able to get a I guess like not a, maybe not a confession, but like, I guess like a thumb drive or data, implicating like all the corrupt cops and officials that Diaz had on his payroll. Yeah, and of course he made a deal with that bitch FBI agent Watson, in which she would admit to being the Green Arrow and turn himself in exchange for her granting immunity to the rest of the B team, and I guess presumably Black Siren for. And he also had like appropriately enough, having Sarah Lance show up in this season finale to not only interact with Laura Lance, or the Earth 2 Laurel Lance, and even asking, it's like, are you anything like my Laurel? And even with the like her first like tinge of remorse, like telling somebody that she isn't like Earth 1 Laurel, when there are other times where it's like she was proud to say she wasn't like Earth 1 Laurel, didn't want to have anything to do with Earth 1 Laurel, or any kind of associated with Earth 1 Laurel, or in comparison. And now it just felt like she felt like a sense of shame for not doing it. And of course, in typical Mark Guggenheim Wendy Miracle fashion, Quentin died of his gunshot wound, and this is, of course, like the second family member that Sarah Lance never got to be at their bedside before they passed away. And of course, you had like, while Oliver Queen was taken into custody, he got to have his own like Iron Man moment where he admitted to being the Green Arrow and convinced everybody to keep fighting in his name to keep the city safe. And instead, Tommy Merlin and Roy Harper were Fall Guys, and just to keep fighting for the city in his name, even if he wasn't by the books, and he was apparently put in. He wasn't in Iron Heights. He was in the Slab Side Maximum Penitentiary, where the producers hinted that he would be running into old major enemies that he had locked away. So I guess we'll see. Maybe get an idea of like how long he's in prison, and what life has been like while for Star City and his allies while he's been locked away.
Morning, 4587. Beautiful day.
Lights out!
Oliver, it's been 5 months, man. Being out of control, I know is not your strong suit.
Focusing on what I can control. Keep my head down. Avoid conflict.
Not fighting back. Never been who you were.
Star City continues to employ a zero-tolerance policy against any and all acts of vigilantism.
There have been no vigilantes in this city for 5 months.
As to the identity of this unknown assailant, this is someone new.
Oliver asked us to carry on. Sometimes people just need something to believe in.
I have to fight back.
Oliver Queen took everything from me. I'm gonna enjoy taking everything from him.
Okay, so I gotta say that's a pretty good trailer. Like you predicted that he would be Oliver would be locked away in the same prison with some of his other past enemies that he had locked away. You had like Bronze Tiger, played by Michael J. White, who was a member of the Suicide Squad from season 2. You had Derek Sampson, who played Cody Rhodes, Stardust, as one of the prison, cellmates, lack of better terms. I don't know. I don't remember the guy who was looking at Oliver when he was in his prison cell. He was like keeping. He didn't want to maintain any eye contact. I think Murmur may show up again, but these are just like a few of the former enemies that Oliver is going to run into in Slab's side. But I mean, there was like a whole rumor where people were thinking like, oh, Oliver is going to be in prison for like at least like 3 episodes, and then Stephen Amell, came out went public and said that wasn't going to be the case. So maybe it'll be like a 1 or 2 episode thing. Like, who knows? Because it seems like the pattern is that if they have something like this happen where the hero gets sidelined for one reason or another at the end of a season rather than in the middle of a season, then because of the hiatus and they want to have the show keep taking place in real time, that it'll more or less go back to the status quo. If it's something like Oliver getting stabbed by Ra's al Ghul after their duel and then being sidelined for 3 episodes, or Barry being in prison for 3 episodes, going to jail, that's something they'll have last for multiple episodes. But something like, you know, Oliver going to jail, or you know, I guess like Barry going into the Speed Force. So like people were thinking like, oh, that was gonna last for like multiple episodes, and or like Barry like going back in time and creating Flashpoint and thinking that'll last for like several episodes. Like it didn't. It was there. It didn't. Like stuff like, you know, being in Speed Force and Flashpoint, they only lasted for one episode. Like I said, like I feel like I've become like savvy enough to know, you know, what the writers are going or not going to do for these shows. That I mean, I think Oliver should be in prison for maybe like at least for like make it like a two-parter if nothing else. But of course, it may be another situation where he's out of prison for one reason or another. You know, before the end of the season 7 premiere, and I like how he's growing out his beard and having more of a goatee. I was the only person who was like against him going a goatee and him, you know, happy with him having the scruff, just because I was worried about it. Because like whenever you see the goatee in the comics, it's always like kind of like a long goatee and kind of like a mini like ZZ Top-esque kind of facial hair. So I was like, no, that wasn't the case. But just like the way the actual beard is growing out, then I'm like, all right, I can get on board with this. I mean, it seems like, you know, like Dinah pointed out, there's been no vigilanteism in the last several months. I think there was like an article where I think in TV Guide it was mentioned by the producers that of all of the of Team Arrow, that Dinah might be the one who ultimately is like gets back into vigilanteism the soonest. There of course has this new like called Green Arrow, who's like patrolling the streets even though Oliver's in prison. The working theory is, and I'm inclined to agree with it, that it's probably Roy Harper, considering that, you know, Oliver going to jail, that, you know, Roy was basically exonerated and is basically able to, you know, he doesn't have to like go on the run anymore. He can basically come back to be, you know, living a normal life, and that he's and you know, they hinted that, you know, I don't know where they said it. They said like Roy Harper was going to be like a new kind of hero. So of course he was probably going to be taking up the Green Arrow mantle. But then of course there's this explanation, as you know, in which at the end of like episode 616 he went off with Thea and Nyssa to go destroy the remaining Lazarus pits around the world. So because he wanted to be at Thea's side. So now there's going to be, I guess we have to wait for an explanation as to why he's no longer with either one of them and he's come back to Star City. Whether or not it's just like he just felt like he couldn't get involved in that mission, or he just thought that he feels like he had to prioritize carrying on the Green Arrow legacy for Oliver's sake, that he felt like Nyssa and Thea could handle that Lazarus Pit mission on their own. And then of course you have like Earth 2 Laura Lance talking to the press. It looks like she's at a podium which is not unlike Oliver and Sebastian Blood, when both of them were mayors of Star City, and this is the exact same location where they would give public speeches. So it makes you wonder if, in an ironic twist, that Black Siren is actually going to become the new mayor of Star City. Because I mean, some people think like, oh, she's just going to become the new DA, but it's like she's not Laurel. She's not like she's like going to school for. Like, she doesn't have like a law degree, and it'd be implausible for her to become the DA with like such a little experience as a lawyer, or not even like a law degree, which I would feel like it would be more plausible and be kind of more of like breaking the formula a little bit, in which it's like it will be like the executive producer Beth Schwartz said, in which she's carrying on the Laurel Lance legacy, her doppelganger's legacy, but wanting to carry out vengeance, presumably still wanting to avenge Quentin's death, especially when she'll probably find out that Ricardo Diaz is still alive. And she may be the one who comes in and does that last minute save to prevent William from being shot by Diaz. And I feel like it will make more sense for Black Siren to be the mayor rather than a lawyer, just because it's like Oliver Queen became mayor for like 2 seasons, for like basically like at least like 2 seasons, and it's like he didn't even have like a background in like politics or law to do that, and it's like Black Siren doesn't have a background in politics or law, so it just feels like it's apparently not a very high criteria for being the mayor of Star City, and that seems like the most plausible role that she would take on. And they were, with people thinking it's like, oh, or she's and think that she would be able to like win the votes of Star City, considering it's like, oh, they just assume she's Earth One Laurel, and she has like her doppelganger's background in law and fighting for the little guy, where she would probably like naturally get elected. So I'm sure that's what her role is going to be. And I also mentioned how like Felicity was going to be like the new Team Arrow, the new leader of Team Arrow, and I feel like this is like more plausible. I feel like this is like something that, I mean, not that I never found. I mean, I would like on Flash. I never found like, I wouldn't know like other people who found Iris West's role as a team leader implausible. It just left a lot to be desired. Felicity and her kid, it just feels like more plausible because it's like, she's been to the trenches every now and then, Iris, but also, she's a hacker, so it's like, she has a skill that directly contributes to Team Arrow's activities. And I don't know. I feel like I know there's some people who have been complaining about it's like, oh, is this going to be like a retread of the Iris being the team leader of Team Flash in season 4? It's like she's not capable of being leader and blah blah blah. And it's like it just makes it feels like how it's like there's nothing that I get from this, that the backlash from these roles, from having Felicity and Iris in these roles, that it's just petty, and it's petty sexism or something. Like I don't know why. Felicity being the leader of her team is more plausible, and yet it's still getting. I'm still seeing some backlash about that. I don't get it. It's just like fanboys can be fucking petty, and it's pretty fucking ridiculous. But anyway, I figure this is one of the better trailers for the DC TV shows that was shown at a Comic-Con. I'm excited for it. Arrow is one of the shows I'm like the most optimistic about. Just because it's like they got a new showrunner, and Mark Guggenheim, and Wendy Miracles are gone, Mark Guggenheim's gone, or at least he's been like. Now he's just an executive consultant, which just feels like it means he's going to be a glorified advisor. And I mean, Beth Schwartz has been like co-executive producer and been on the writing staff since day one. But maybe since she's not under the thumb of douchebags like Guggenheim and Andrew Kreisberg, then maybe she can. Maybe she'll have some like ideas to bring to the table that she wasn't able to bring to before. And she said she's excited to write for for Black Siren, and it seems like she's more eager to give her like an actual true redemption arc as opposed to season 6, where just kind of like they just play with the idea and they never really truly went anywhere with it. And also and also hinted that she would give Black Siren her own arch enemy, like whether or not it's going to be Ricardo Diaz, one of the other longbow hunters, or somebody else. I liked Ricardo Diaz. I didn't love him. I feel like, Arrow being like a crime drama, they shouldn't be above having like a crime lord as a major enemy like Daredevil did, but I also get the criticism where people feel like, he's a step down considering like the show's been on for so long and Oliver's gone up against like, Damien Dark, who's basically a Bond villain with magic powers and runs his own evil organization, to a super soldier like Slade Wilson and like all of his other other enemies who rather had direct or indirect ties to the League of Assassins. That I can understand why people always think like Ricardo Diaz would be a step down. My only gripe with Ricardo Diaz, I liked how he was kind of like manipulative and kind of like, kind of like a behind the scenes like puppet master. But my only gripe I had with him was the fact that it's like there was almost like some levels of character shilling towards the end of season 6. Especially, through Earth 2 Laurel, when she was like talking to Quentin and saying stuff like, I worked under other villains before, but nobody like him. Like, he's not even human inside. Like, he killed a childhood bully over a grudge. And it's like, okay, you worked for a cyber terrorist who was willing to blow up the city. And then before that, a serial killer who was basically the Joker to Oliver Queen's Batman. And then you worked for an evil speedster like Zoom, who was willing to destroy the multiverse. And then they were trying to make it look like Ricardo Diaz like was the worst of the worst, and like was trying too hard to like make him, to make him on par with that he was the worst of the worst, and like tell you he was on par with past enemies of Oliver Queen. At least with Kaden James, they just like they kind of let him do this. They let him be his own villain. They weren't trying to like shove you, be like heavy-handed about the fact. It's like, oh, he's super evil. He's like the worst of the worst. Like, he's like the worst. He's one of the worst enemies that Oliver's ever gone up against. Like, on par with like, Prometheus and Damien Dark or whatnot. I feel like they were doing that with Diaz, which they didn't need to. At least with Kaden James, they just let him be and, let people pass judgment on whether or not he was a good villain or not. Again, he was divisive, but at least there was more of like, tell, don't show. As far as storytelling 101. But again, I'm really excited for Arrow. I'm, even though I wasn't a fan of season 6, like I said, having a new executive producer and also one who acknowledged how much she understood how much people were pissed off about the schism among the team, and how it's like, okay, we get it. We're not going to do any more of that drama for the sake of drama stuff. I'm optimistic to see what kind of direction season 7 goes. But anyway, guys, what did you think about the trailer? Leave your thoughts in the comments down below. If you like this video, like, share, and subscribe, and I will talk to you guys soon. Take care.